Welcome everyone to the second segment of the special interview hosted by LMBD, the collaborative network for professionals in business development, marketing, and communications, as well as lawyers and partners dedicated to growing their firms. LMBD aims to bring together like-minded individuals, fostering a community where we can learn, share experiences, and collectively boost the growth of our firms. In part one of this interview, we explored the general aspects of the Chamber's Diversity and Inclusion Awards with Luke Vincett, who represents Chambers and Partners Diversity and Inclusion. We will now go into filling out the submissions, and Luke will give us his insights and tips to achieve a truly competitive submission. If a law firm operates in different countries, should they answer one survey per law firm or one per jurisdiction? If it's one per law firm, which jurisdiction should be indicated in the first question?
So firms should only submit one submission per law firm. If it's a firm who operate in multiple countries, the jurisdiction which should be indicated is where the head office is, or the office with the most attorneys. Now, we've added the question about the size of the firm, whether you're a local, national, regional, or global firm, to provide that extra context that is really useful for us in assessing the submissions.
For firms operating in jurisdictions where it is illegal to ask about LGBTI disabilities and socioeconomic backgrounds, how should they handle the question regarding firm statistics related to these aspects in the submissions?
This is a really important question, and we fully understand the difficulties in collecting data on some of the diversity markers and protected characteristics that we ask about. We certainly take that into account when judging the submissions and analyzing the data provided. However, what I would say is that firms can still ask their attorneys to volunteer this information, and firms that are leading the way on D&I will be doing this. Collecting this data is a vital part of tracking progress. So while we understand the difficulties, it's a sign of commitment to D&I to have a program where you try to collect some of this data. Now, we respect that some people will always choose not to disclose this information, but experts say that anything above a 60% sample is useful. And now, just to give you an example from us here at Chambers, when we first started collecting this data, our first sample was 58%. So over the last few years, we've put a lot of work in to build our narrative of why we collect this data and what we use it for. And in our last round of data collection, we had a 90% completion rate across the business. So like I say, we understand the difficulties and we use that context when judging the submissions, but it is also important to do what you can to collect this data and try to evidence that.
In the private practice submission, what is the best approach for selecting the right reference to ensure that the nominated individual is truly deserving of the award?
So the right reference is somebody who can speak in detail about the nominee, and ideally the 5 criteria that we assess and the outcomes of their work. So that can be an in-house counsel who works closely with the firm or individual. It can be an NGO. In some cases, it might be somebody who has directly benefited, a private individual who has directly benefited from the work. The only people that it can't be is somebody who works at the firm themselves.
Is it possible to submit 2 individuals for one award, or does each category require a single nominee?
Yes, so typically we ask for one submission per category. So firms can't submit multiple people per category. So they really need to decide one individual for each category who they think has achieved above and beyond in their D&I or pro bono or sustainability work in the last year. The one exception to this would be where team members have jointly run a program and firms might want to submit them together. We have had some kind of precedent of this in our USA awards. There were 2 attorneys at Holland and Knight who launched a really successful women's mentoring program. They were shortlisted over a couple of years and they actually won our Lifetime Achievement Award this year together. And that was partly in recognition of the fact that the program had been running for 20 years and, as I say, had been incredibly successful. So there are exceptions, but typically the strongest applications will involve individuals who have contributed to the legal community across multiple projects or programs. So we'd really encourage firms to consider the work of each of the individuals in question and whether a nomination for one might be stronger than nominating two or more together.
In the private practice submission, should the 5 referees provided be familiar with all of the initiatives mentioned in the nomination, or is it acceptable to have 1 referee for each of the nominations being made?
So here you can really structure it how you like. There's no requirement for each referee to be familiar with all of the initiatives. You can have each referee talk specifically about a different category that you've submitted in.
For the different individual awards, would it be beneficial for the submission to address each of the 5 criteria: breadth, commitment, impact, advancement, and originality in separate paragraphs?
Again, you can really structure it how you like. Some submissions choose to do this, to have separate paragraphs for each of the criteria, and it can be a useful way of ensuring you evidence all of those criteria. However, you can also just as effectively evidence the criteria without doing this through a more narrative format. Some of the most successful submissions will have partly a narrative section, and then they might have some really key metrics and statistics included as well. It doesn't have to be just a block of text.
If a law firm or individual has been working on a project for several years and wishes to continue submitting it due to recent developments, does this affect their score negatively since it's a project that has already been submitted in the past?
Not at all. We love to see a successful project continuing. And if anything, this might add to the score if, and it's an important if, there is evidence of significant progress in the last 12 months.
Can the nominee for the in-house counsel, team category, or in-house team also serve as a referee in the submission?
Yes, they can. As I mentioned earlier, in-house counsel are increasingly collaborating with law firms to advance D&I. So the fact that they're doing that means that they are likely to be a really good in-house nominee. And it also means that they're going to be able to speak really, really in detail about the D&I work that a law firm is doing as a client referee.
That's a wrap. Thank you all for joining us on this special interview. Remember, this is a 2-part interview, so if you did not catch the first segment, be sure to listen to it on LMBD's LinkedIn page. Luke, thank you so much for your time and valuable information you shared with us today. And for all of you submitting to the D&I Awards, the best of luck.